Um, so how old do you think Matucha was? Do you have any information about her?
So, okay, so here's the cool thing. Well, no, I don't have any information about how old she was. But one of the interesting things I will say is that we tend to think of the witch as an elderly woman, but most of the trial records actually don't list an age. And when you look at woodcuts from these demonology treatises, they're young women and men around, they look like they're around 25, 30 years old. So we don't know how old Matucha was. And the cool thing that I was going to say was that this summer, Eden and I will be traveling to Todi, Italy, to the Commune de Todi, where there is actually, apparently there's a rumor where there's a woodcut of Matucha somewhere in the Commune de Todi. So I want to go take a picture, find out what she looked like. And if they have her drawn as an elderly woman, I will let anyone know who wants to know. Was that your question, Eden, or was that from
that was just my question.
Oh, that was from yours. Okay. Okay.
Yes, please. Anyone, any questions?
Yeah, this is my favorite part, is the Q&A. So no question.
Okay, question here.
Yes.
From Doug Vargas.
Yay, Doug, how you doing, brother?
What would you say were the cultural/theological trends that led to the demonization of magic and these practices? Just the church wanting to consolidate power?
And not so much. Yeah, there's consolidation of power, but there's also like people, everybody really believed this was going on. I mean, it wasn't just church authorities that feared people working with demons. I mean, regular people feared it. So there was certainly a concentration of power taking place. That's certainly there, but I wouldn't say that that's all that was there. I mean, these people really did believe this stuff was real. I mean, you don't have any records of theologians saying, I secretly know that this is all nonsense, but we're going to burn that witch anyway. No. The wise woman herself believed in her powers. Her neighbors believed in her powers. All the theologians believed in her power. They believed in this stuff.
Gotcha.
Great question.
How do you spell Matucha?
Matteuccia.
Matteu.
Matteo. It's Matteuccia. 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 It actually, it's so here's what must have happened. We don't really know, but Matucha in Latin, Jesus. Sorry, not Latin, in Italian means darling little female Matthew. So it has been perhaps, I think that maybe her parents were expecting a son that they wanted to name Matthew. And when they had a daughter instead, they named her Matucha. That's what I think happened.
Okay. And so it wasn't the plants themselves that were illegal. It was the use of them.
Yes. Yeah. Great question. How it wasn't. So the plants themselves were not necessarily demonized. It was the goddess that was demonized. It was the goddess religion that was demonized. And we have some pretty good examples of this because I'll give you just one example. In the mid 1500s, a guy named Giambattista della Porta wrote a book called Natural Magic, where he outlined all these different uses, magical uses of solanaceous plants and opium. He also mentions how wise women were using them for, this spirit flight. There was a French jurist named Jean Baudin who wanted Giambattista della Porta arrested and put on trial and possibly executed, not for writing about the use of these plants, but for saying that this is how women are entering this state. They wanted to say it was the demons, just like Jean Vincent, right? It's not the power of the plants. And like Tostado, it's not the power of the plants. That's all secondary. It's really the cunning of a demon that's doing this. So they knew. They decided to say, forget it. That doesn't help us out much.
From Vola Veritas, can you speak on the connection to Lucifero in those two cases? I'm not familiar with the history with that base word.
Sure. So Lucifer, it comes from the Latin lux ferre. It's two words, lux light and ferre to carry, like we get the word like to ferry, ferry boat. So the light carrier. As far as Lucifer and Lucibello, they were obviously trying to associate it with something satanic because of that, of the words they used. We don't really know where it comes. Like Lucifello turns up in Piorina's record with no precedent, and Lucibello turns up in Matucci with no precedent. We don't actually know. Great question. I wish I had a better answer for that. Again, when Eden and I are in Europe next summer, we're going to be digging hard for these answers. So,
have you ever tried Amanita muscaria and or herb ointments with henbane yourselves, and how did you experience it?
Sure. So I worked with Amanita muscaria only once as a tincture, and we're actually making more. We actually have a bunch of jars right here. Hold on. Thanks. Oh, this one's a little empty because we're making potions. But yeah, we've got 12 of these bad boys filled with jars that are going to become ointments and smoke blends and tinctures and things. So I did try it once, but not enough. Sorry about that. But not enough to have any kind of visionary quality, but I am looking forward to doing that again. As for henbane, yes, I work with henbane rather frequently. Henbane is one of what I call my 4 sacred herbs, which are cannabis, mandrake, henbane, and although not an herb, psilocybin mushroom. I normally I'll make a potion that'll be a mix of henbane, mandrake, all 4. I call it the quintessence. So mandrake, henbane, cannabis, and psilocybin. And I'll also make suffumigations of cannabis, mandrake, and henbane. And suffumigation is where you make a fire in a little cauldron. You put a cloth over your head and you breathe it in. It comes from 2 Latin words as well, sub, meaning below, and fumar, to smoke. So, below smoke.
Aaron asks, is there evidence that these goddesses are actually pagan survivals versus more contemporary creations?
Excellent question. It's a little bit of both. It's hard to tell. It really is very difficult to tell because so what I think is that it all does stem from one mother goddess, but as time went on, it did split into, it became localized and regional. So just as an example, in Italy alone, this goddess went by Madame Oriente. She also went by Ricella. She also went by Bensosia, which is a corruption of the word good society, ben, good, and socia, society. And that's just Italy. In France, she was known as Domina Obondia. In Germany, she was Frau Holt, Frau Helt, Bertha, Pertha, all different kinds of names. I think that they are talking about one goddess of fertility and fortune, though, because they all seem to couch her in terms of fertility and fortune. So really, I wish I had such a better answer for you, because that is a great question. Also, really quick while I'm answering, while I'm thinking about it, I don't know who among you, but there was 2 of you with the donation for this. 2 of you put 666 as the amount. That was so cool. I got a good chuckle out of that both times it happened. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. That was cool. Anything else?
Yes.
Yeah. All right,
was
great.
the demonization of wise women, the goddess, also spread across other areas of Europe and subsequent witch persecutions?
Yeah, and it happened in different times in different places, yes. I don't know. I'm mostly familiar with the areas where the stereotype formed, which was, again, the Alpine region that separates or that borders Germany, Italy, and France. That's where a lot of this stuff actually came out of. So the bulk of my research, and if you get the witch's ointment, you'll see, like in the back, I have all the references. They're all in Latin, Italian, vulgar German, vulgar French, vulgar Spanish, but mostly vulgar Italian and German and Latin, because Latin was the lingua franca, but that's where most of this stuff was taking place.
That last one was for Joanne.
Okay.
Joanne,
there was one more thing I wanted to say about that. Oh, I'm so sorry, Joanne, I forgot. Well, remind me the question one second.
Was the demonization of wise women, the goddess, also spread across other areas?
Oh yeah, it was all. I'm so sorry, Joanne.
That's my bad because I interrupted.
No, it's
Okay.
not your bad. It's my bad for being an absent-minded,
From Dana, I could look this up, but are there psychedelic effects of Mandrake, Nightshade, Ergot, Belladonna pretty similar, or how are they different?
Ergot is very different. Mandrake and Henbane, I find, and Belladonna are all quite similar. I would say almost the same thing, really. There is one thing that I did notice, though, that mixing Henbane with cannabis, I prefer like more than mixing Mandrake with cannabis, and mixing mushrooms with Mandrake is really good. And I prefer that way more than mixing Henbane with Mandrake.
Okay.
Our little witch's kitty has come to join us.
Yes.
Hey, Chris
Michael asks, where are you getting the recipes for these potions?
Oh, I in archives. I spent time. I lived in my car for some time. I taught myself Latin, and I would just drive around to different archives, digging them out of the trial records and the demonology texts, and the medical books. They're there. You just have to really, you got to look for them. And, unfortunately when I first started this research, I immediately hit a language barrier wall. Like I can read modern Spanish and modern Italian. I'm starting to lose that, but I couldn't read Latin at all. And all of these records are in Latin. And even the ones that are in Spanish and in Italian are in vulgar Spanish and vulgar Italian. So it's an archaic form of the language. So, that's why it took 10 years. Most of the 10 years wasn't me looking. It was teaching myself the languages and translating the texts. The texts were easy to find. I mean, we're in the age of the internet. You go to the archive, the library archives, that was easy.
Quinn asks, did you have to build a tolerance to Henbane and Mandrake over time? And how did you ingest them safely?
Oh, great question, Quinn. And yes, I did. I'm going to tell you quick little digression of a story here. So the first time I ever inhaled, it was a mixture of Mandrake, Henbane, cannabis, and saffron. I took a very large amount. I don't know how much it was, but it was definitely too much. My roommate at the time, who was also my singer at the time, and we lived together, she actually found me in my bedroom. I was naked in the corner, kind of scratching away at my face like this. And so she called her fiance at the time and one of my best friends, Randy, to lay me out on the bed and get me feeling good. And, now I could actually take a dose of Henbane or Mandrake that would probably kill a person. So you definitely want to slowly build it up over time, because that first time I could have killed myself. Instead, it just drove me absolutely out of my mind. And the visions were not pleasant. It was chaotic. I was still, this is 2005. I was still finding, my broom legs, so to speak, as a witch. So we all make mistakes. Sometimes, you put 2 eyes of the newt in the cauldron and it just explodes. And that's what happened with me that time.
Erwin asks, do you see a connection between medieval witch hunt and the modern war on drugs?
That's a great question. In the sense that the modern war on drugs targets, as we all know, very much targets marginalized people. Yeah, I would say so. I don't think that the war on drugs is a continuation of this in any way, but I'd say just, pointing to marginalized people, pointing to people who've been disenfranchised and abused, as we all know, the war on drugs is pretty famous for that. That's certainly there, definitely.
Aaron asks, is there a point when the use of these ointments and plants disappears in the historical record?
No. People continue to use them. One of the books I might actually write might be my next. I'm between 2 different books. I want to write either a book on how people were still using this stuff in the 17 and 1800s, and actually to the present day, people still do this in Italy and Belgium, I believe, as well. Other areas of Europe. I don't remember exactly where, but so I was either going to write a book on the continuation of this stuff in the 17 and 1800s, or I was going to write a book called, The Lost Religion of the Goddess, which would be based on this talk, and I'd get deeper into all this stuff. It would be a more friendly to read book than The Witch's Ointment. For those that have read The Witch's Ointment, I know Quinn has, it's pretty dense and it reads like a PhD dissertation, because that's what it originally was supposed to be. So I'd like to write a more, a popular, for a general audience book on these topics.
Joanne asks, when you extract for an ointment, which fat do you prefer? Coconut oil, bear fat, animal, etc.? Or tell us your preferred methods of creating.
With these, with solanaceous plants, I do it all by inhalation. I have not yet, I should be clear, I have not yet made an ointment out of them. Sarah Ann Lawless up in Canada would probably be the person to ask. So I'm sorry, but yeah, I inhale them. I'm too impatient to wait. I just, I want to just get right into the spirit world, I'm sorry.
Michael recommends a recipe book. And
yes, Kobe Michael, a friend and colleague, actually just published just about 2 weeks ago, the Poison Path Herbal that I would highly recommend. And he does get into recipes in there. So his is more of a practical manual, while mine is more of the history of what was actually going on, and trying to, as best as I can, and as long as I'm not talking out of school here, trying to give these people a voice. Like finding Matucha's actual incantation that she would say, her entheogenic incantation, was one of those discoveries that makes me continue to be a historian. It was really, I might get a little sentimental for a moment. I'm not going to cry though, but you get to touch these people. Like you get to be there with, like, I don't know. I don't know. I felt, I don't know how to put it. It's just, it's a very meta feeling when you make these discoveries, and you feel a little, I just felt a little bit close to her. As close as I could possibly ever get, sadly. Until we go to the Commune de Todi and hopefully find a woodcut of her.
Yes. Can you, Jillian asks, can you speak more about docetism?
Docetism. Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you asked. Just a little bit of insect-less water for a start. Docetism comes from the Greek word dokeo, which means to seem to be or appear to be. So early forms of Gnosticism, like the Marcionites, saw Jesus, were docetists. So they thought that Jesus was actually a phantasm. So he only seemed to be there. The reason I called those heretics docetists was that they said that, his body didn't really resurrect, because docetists believe that the real Christ actually left the human Jesus while he was hanging on the cross. And that's why Jesus famously says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, my God, why have you forsaken me? The docetists believe that that was actually the Christ leaving the Jesus, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Please. Well, if not, I do thank you all so much for coming to this. Again, I'm going to be doing one of these every month. Next month will be on the the alleged psychedelic origins of Christmas. And hope to catch you all there as well. Oh, it looks like we have one last question. Do we?
Let's see here. You're talking about.
I thought somebody asked about.
Have you ever invoked a demon? Michael asks.
Accidentally I did, and it's a little personal because it just actually happened pretty recently. Eden and I were down in what was that, Williams, Oregon?
Williams, Oregon.
We were down in Williams, Oregon, doing ayahuasca, and yeah, I definitely fucked up on the first night because a demon did show up. So in answer to your question, let me put it like this. I accidentally, like, think back to my actions. It's totally my fault. I should have been more careful with the dieta and everything like that. But I've never consciously tried to invoke a demon. But as it turns out, I'm pretty good at it when I'm not trying. So.
Jennifer asks, can you share with us about your journeys and what led you to begin your journeys?
Sure. So what led me to begin my journeys, let's see. I ate mushrooms for the first time at 18 years old. Excuse me. And it's not COVID. I just smoke weed. And it was to just see what it was like. And I didn't really have much of a thought about it, but I did feel when I got back, wow, this was something special. This was something big just happened here. I don't know what it was, but something big happened. And that's what brought me back to it, kept bringing me back. And over time, as I developed, and there's another book that I'm going to be writing titled Psychedelic Witch, Goddess Worship in the Modern World. Or that's the proposed title right now. I kind of go over this journey and how it, I ate mushrooms. So I started off, I had this very vague form of spirituality. I think like most people that feel like that, you're just that kind of person, the weirdos, the freaks, the witches, all of us in the Zoom room, so you just feel like there's something beyond that, something doesn't feel quite right. And so I always had that. And then eating mushrooms was like, oh, I think I was right about, that there was something else. And then when I started doing the real deep research for my book, The Witch's Ointment, and actually learning what these wise women were doing, I started, maybe this will work for me. So I started incorporating some of their practices into my practices. And those are the practices that I have today. I have an entire magical system that I've developed over 20 years of eating mushrooms and talking to goddesses.
I think that's it, unless we have any other questions.
Oh, that's it. I want to, Doug Vargas, everyone, fuck yeah. I really thank you all so very much for showing up to this. I'm not, we weren't sure if anyone would be interested in this kind of thing. Yeah, hope to see you again next month. And we will be sending out links and stuff and all the info anyone would need. And yeah, till next time. Thanks for joining. Peace.